Navy SEAL carrying the woman he loves, a wounded K-9 charging through fire and gunshots, and a city that wanted them dead. They were outnumbered, hunted, and trapped inside a collapsing warehouse, until one impossible miracle broke through the smoke. This is the story of how loyalty outran bullets, how courage shattered fear, and how one dog's bravery saved not just a team, but a future that almost never happened. If stories of survival, faith, and unbreakable love speak to your heart, hit subscribe now, because this is one story you will never forget. A cold metallic wind pressed through the ruined skeleton of Talvoria as night settled like a sheet of steel over the dead city. The streets were deserted, half swallowed by rubble and burnt-out vehicles, their twisted frames rising like broken ribs under the faint orange glow of distant fires. Elias Grant moved through that darkness with a deliberate, disciplined calm of a man shaped by both war and loss. Elias, a 33-year-old Navy SEAL, carried himself with the unmistakable aura of a soldier forged through relentless training and hard-earned scars. He stood 6'2", broad-shouldered, with a powerful, athletic build that spoke of countless hours conditioning his body to withstand the demands of special operations. His hair, dark brown, cut short in military regulation, hugged a scalp marked by a faint scar along the left temple, a reminder from an explosion years earlier during a rescue mission gone wrong. His skin, tanned from deployment after deployment, held the weary grit of a man who had seen too many cities fall. A strong jaw, stubble-darkened, and sharp, observant eyes of a stormy gray completed his hardened appearance. Those eyes rarely rested. They swept the shadows like blades, precise and unyielding. He was not a man who smiled often, not anymore. Something had been taken from him years ago. A fellow SEAL and closest friend lost in an ambush that Elias blamed himself for. The guilt had carved a permanent mark in his expression, an invisible weight that manifested in how rarely he allowed his guard to drop. He was respected, disciplined, and frighteningly efficient. But beneath the exterior lived a man constantly balancing between duty and ghosts. Beside him padded Rex, his partner, his shadow, and in many ways the only being Elias fully trusted. Rex was a 5-year-old Belgian Malinois, muscular and agile, with a sable coat that glimmered under the faint moonlight. His ears were sharp triangles of alertness, constantly twitching, constantly scanning. His intelligence was almost unsettling. He moved with a kind of silent precision that came only from the highest tier of K-9 special operations training. Rex had been trained in detection, tracking, close combat, and silent assault, capable of slipping through enemy lines like a whisper and striking with explosive force. His amber eyes held intensity, loyalty, and a fierce readiness to kill if Elias commanded it, or if Elias were threatened. Talvoria had once been a bustling city in the borderlands, but now it stood in ruins, collapsed towers, fractured roads, and entire districts reduced to charred rubble. Smoke drifted in long, ghost-like fingers through the shattered streets. Somewhere far off, a metal beam collapsed with a hollow echo. Elias adjusted the grip on his suppressed rifle and glanced at the map on his wrist-mounted screen. Rex, he murmured, voice low and steady. Team Echo was last tracked 3 blocks east. Keep tight. Rex stayed glued to his left side. Not out of fear, but out of near-perfect discipline. Elias and Rex had been paired for 3 years. 3 years of raids, rescues, bomb fields, cities like this one. And together, they still stood. The deeper they moved into Talvoria, the heavier the air felt, thick with dust and tension. Elias's mind ran calculations constantly. Angles of cover, potential sniper positions, sound traps, paths of retreat, but beneath the tactical assessments was an unspoken anxiety pressing into his ribs. Team Echo had gone dark 40 hours earlier. Entire SEAL teams did not simply vanish. Rex stopped abruptly. His body stiffened, muscles rippling under his coat. His tail froze low, ears angled sharply toward a collapsed storefront ahead. Elias immediately lowered his center of gravity, rifle raised, breath steady. "Talk to me." "Boys," he whispered. Rex inhaled sharply. Then gave a barely audible huff, the signal for chemical. Possible explosives? Elias nodded slowly. Good catch. He scanned the debris. The storefront had been gutted by fire. Blackened beams protruded like jagged teeth. The entry was too narrow and too untouched, suspiciously untouched. Someone had been here. Someone who knew how to set a trap that targeted trained soldiers. Elias knelt, brushing his fingers through the dust. Then he spotted it, the faintest glint of a wire snaking beneath a layer of soot. A pressure-triggered IED, hidden under the Desiree. Rex, back. The dog retreated 3 controlled steps. Elias examined the device with trained precision, mapping it in his head. He knew how to disable it, but more importantly, he knew why it was here. Crimson Fangs, the name alone tightened Elias's jaw. They were not ordinary militants. They were a mercenary syndicate known for brutality and tactical cunning, ex-military, deserters, and war criminals brought together under one notorious banner. They didn't fight wars. They created them. They didn't kill for ideology. They killed for profit. The Fangs had taken over Talvoria 2 months ago, and everything since then had spiraled into chaos. If Team Echo had crossed paths with Crimson Fangs, Elias swallowed hard. He needed to prepare himself for the worst. He neutralized the IED quickly, hands moving with habit and precision. As he cut the final trigger wire, Rex's ears twitched again. This time the dog's body lowered smoothly into an assault stance. No explosives. Movement. Elias didn't hear anything at first. Then, a faint metallic ping off concrete. A click, a shift of weight. A breath. Sniper. Above. Elias reacted instantly, but he wasn't fast enough. The shot cracked through the air. Cutting toward his skull, Rex slammed into him from the side with full force. Elias crashed down behind a chunk of concrete, heart thundering as a second round shattered the ground beside his head. Rex, Elias hissed, scrambling to push the dog behind cover while simultaneously lifting his rifle toward the source. Rex was trembling, not in fear, but from the adrenaline of his protective instinct being triggered. "Stay," Elias whispered, pressing a hand to the dog's chest. Rex obeyed. Elias peeked over cover for a millisecond, long enough to spot the glint of a scope 4 stories up in a collapsed office building. He fired twice. Clean and controlled, the figure ducked away. A second silhouette shifted near a window. A spotter. Crimson Fangs, Elias muttered under his breath. Definitely them. He checked his surroundings. The Fangs operated in coordinated pairs or trios. There had to be more. Rex growled. Low. Warned. Elias heard it a heartbeat later, a distinct crunch of gravel behind them. He spun, leveling his rifle. A figure lunged out of the shadow with a blade. The attacker was tall, lean, masked in black tactical gear, moving with lethal intent. Elias sidestepped, grabbing the man's wrist and twisting sharply until bones snapped. The knife clattered to the ground, and Elias slammed the man into the pavement with controlled brutality. The attacker's mask fell off, revealing a shaved head, cold blue eyes, and a jagged scar running down the left cheek, a classic marking among some Fang units. Before Elias could interrogate him, the sniper fired again, forcing him to pull back behind cover. Damn it! Elias forced a slow breath, mind recalibrating. This wasn't a random ambush. They were being hunted. Rex barked once, sharp. A second shooter was repositioning. Elias grabbed the attacker's comms device and pressed it to his ear. He heard rapid whispers in a rough dialect he recognized, Fangs coordinating reinforcement routes. They were planning to swarm the area. Elias stared into the ruins around him. The narrow alleys, broken stairwells, shattered windows. It was the perfect hunting ground for mercenaries. They had every angle ready, but Elias had Rex, and Rex had never failed him. "We move," Elias said. "Now." Rex pressed forward, leading the way with purposeful caution, weaving through debris with astonishing fluidity. Elias followed, senses sharp, muscles coiled for combat. Talvoria's night air grew colder as they entered a boulevard littered with abandoned vehicles. Smoke rolled across the ground like drifting fog. The world had gone too quiet. Rex halted again. Then he growled. Deep, low, certain. Elias heard it next. Footsteps. Many approaching fast. Crimson Fangs weren't just patrolling. They were converging, surrounding. Elias's pulse slowed, not from fear, but from the clarity that always came when death approached. "All right," he whispered, gripping his rifle. "Let's see what hell they're bringing." Rex bared his teeth. His amber eyes glowed with the same resolve Elias felt surge through his chest. Whatever had happened to Team Echo, Elias knew now that he and Rex were stepping into the same storm, and Crimson Fangs would not stop until both of them were dead. But if war had taught Elias anything, it was this: he did not break easily, and Rex did not fail. Together, they pushed deeper into Talvoria, toward the fate of Team Echo, toward the rising threat of the Crimson Fangs, and toward a night that neither man nor dog would ever forget. Night clung to Talvoria like a wounded beast refusing to die. The fires from distant clashes flickered weakly behind the smoke, painting the edges of broken buildings with trembling orange veins. As Elias, Grant, and Rex crouched in the shadow of a half-collapsed bus stop, the world seemed to tighten around them, squeezing every sound, every breath into something heavy and raw. Elias's pulse had returned to a steely steadiness after the earlier sniper encounter, but his mind churned with restless calculations. Every step deeper into the city amplified his unease, not because of Crimson Fangs or the fresh evidence of their presence, but because of what Talvoria itself represented. A graveyard of missions gone wrong, and somewhere within this maze of destruction, the one person who softened the edges of his hardened life had disappeared. Mita Halley, a name he hadn't allowed himself to speak aloud in weeks. Elias leaned against a fractured pillar, inhaling the dusty metallic air. His broad shoulders rose and fell slowly. Disciplined even in exhaustion, Rex sat pressed to his thigh, tongue low, ears on full alert. They were both reading the silence. The city was shifting, its danger crawling under the debris like buried fire. Elias wiped the grit from his brow and pulled up the encrypted message on his wrist-mounted device. The moment the text loaded, his jaw clenched, teeth grinding together with a mix of fury and dread. Report. Humanitarian Unit 4, ambushed. Casualties confirmed. Victim identification pending. Missing. Mira Halley. Presumed dead. Elias closed his eyes for a second, fighting the urge to punch the nearest wall. Mira, dead. No. The report was too clean, too rushed, too formulaic. It sounded like protocol, not truth. Rex nudged Elias's arm with his muzzle, sensing the shift in his breathing. Elias opened his eyes and exhaled through his nose. She's not dead, he murmured. The words weren't a guess. They were an anchor he refused to let go of. Mira Halley was not the kind of woman who vanished quietly. She was a 29-year-old field humanitarian with a stubborn streak that sometimes bordered on reckless. Slender, but deceptively strong, with long copper-brown hair usually tied back in a messy knot, strands escaping to frame her sun-kissed face. Her eyes were a striking warm hazel, always soft when seeing the wounded, but cutting sharp whenever she faced danger. Her height, around 5'7", gave her a presence that felt both grounded and gentle. She moved like someone carrying an invisible weight, yet refusing to be slowed by it. Elias remembered how she used to laugh softly while adjusting the worn straps of her medic pack, saying things like, "Every life matters, even one no one else sees." She was warmth in a cold world, and perhaps the only warmth Elias had let himself feel since losing his teammate years ago. The guilt from that event had made him emotionally silent, armored in stoicism, but Mira had been the first person to breathe something human back into him. Losing her now wasn't an option. "Rex," Elias whispered, pulling himself back into the present. "We're going after her." The dog's ears perked. He didn't need further explanation. He simply rose and fell into step beside Elias. The rhythm of a well-forged partnership. They moved deeper into the city. The further they traveled, the stronger the scent of smoke and iron became. The buildings were more damaged here, some only foundations, others leaning dangerously over the streets. Elias stepped deliberately, scanning every shadow with practiced precision. His strong jaw flexed each time a floorboard creaked under his boot, or a loose stone rolled under Rex's paw. His gray eyes remained narrowed, reading every angle, every echo. Rex stopped suddenly. His body stiffened, nose raised to the wind. Elias froze. "Now, what do you got?" Elias whispered. Rex sniffed again, short, rapid inhales before he veered left, weaving through the wreckage with the slow confidence of a trained tracker. Elias followed closely, fingers brushing over the safety of his rifle. The trail led them to a destroyed humanitarian convoy truck, its white paint scorched black. A medical emblem was smeared across the side, half burned, half clawed by shrapnel. Bodies lay around it, covered with dust and ash. Elias scanned them one by one, his throat tightening. None matched Mira's build, hair, or clothing, but that didn't ease his tension. A sudden voice cut through the silence. "They're freeze. Hands where I can see them." Elias spun around instantly, rifle raised, but he didn't fire. He recognized the uniform. A soldier approached from behind a burnt-out car, Corporal Hannah Reyes, one of the few remaining National Guard units still braving Talvoria's edges. She was a short, fit woman around 26, her brown skin smeared with soot. Dark eyes sharp beneath a Kevlar helmet too large for her narrow face. Her black hair was braided tight against her scalp. Practical and efficient, she held her rifle steady. But Elias saw the exhaustion trembling in her fingers. Corporal Reyes, Elias said, lowering his weapon slightly. Stand down. Her eyes widened in recognition. Lieutenant Grant, what the hell are you doing here? Command said this whole sector was abandoned after the ambush. I'm looking for someone, Elias replied. Someone taken with the humanitarian team. Reyes hesitated, her expression flickering with conflict. We found the team, or what's left of them. Her voice dropped lower, trembling. Most were confirmed KIA, I know, Elias said, stepping closer. But Mira Halley wasn't among the bodies. Reyes swallowed hard. You still know her? She's important, Elias said sharply. Do you know where they took the survivors? Reyes looked down, grinding her boot into the broken glass. Crimson fangs. They hit fast, hard. They took captives, but we couldn't follow. The fangs vanished into the eastern sector. Elias's heart hammered. The eastern sector? He repeated. What part? Reyes pointed with the barrel of her rifle. Near the old textile district. But, Lieutenant, no one comes back from that area. They're building something there, fortifying it. Rumors say they're stockpiling civilians to use as leverage. Rex growled deep, sensing Elias's rising fury. Thank you, Corporal, Elias said, stepping past her. Lieutenant, she called after him. If you're going in there, then God help you. Elias didn't respond. He and Rex were already slipping back into the ruins. The textile district was 4 blocks away, but every block cost them effort. They passed overturned carts, burnt buildings, collapsed walls. At one point, Rex alerted to a booby trap, tripwire connected to a cluster of fragmentation grenades. Elias cut it calmly, but his jaw clenched harder. The ambush earlier hadn't been random. Crimson Fangs knew something. They were tightening control, hunting, or waiting. The smell of burnt plastic grew stronger. The faint echo of distant shouting rose and then vanished. The wind carried faint gunpowder and a more familiar scent. Faded floral soap, Mira's scent. Elias's heartbeat kicked into a new gear. They turned a corner into a narrow alley choked with debris. Rex stopped suddenly. His nose dipped to the ground. His tail stiffened. What do you smell? Elias whispered. Rex followed a scent line to a half-crushed metal railing. He sniffed once, twice, then let out a sharp, expressive bark. Elias stepped closer, eyes narrowing. Something fluttered weakly on the railing, caught between twisted metal. A piece of light blue fabric. Torn, frayed. Elias reached for it, his fingers trembling before he steadied himself. He pulled it free, dust falling away in faint clouds. He recognized the material instantly. Mira's scarf. She wore it every mission. A small splash of color she claimed reminded her of a coastline she grew up near. Elias stared at it for a long moment before closing his eyes. When he reopened them, something inside had sharpened into a blade. The scarf was stained with a streak of dried blood. But it wasn't old. Not yet. Hours. Maybe less. Rex let out a soft whine, nudging the fabric. She's alive, Elias said, voice low but absolute. She's alive. And she's somewhere close. The wind whistled through broken pipes overhead, as if echoing his vow. Elias folded the scarf carefully and tucked it into his vest. Then he stood, posture straighter, tension gathering like a storm beneath his skin. Rex, he said. Track. The dog pressed his nose to the ground and began moving with purpose. Elias followed, scanning their perimeter. Mind laser-focused, he felt the tightening rhythm of pursuit building inside him, fueled by fear, anger, and something protective that went deeper than he wanted to admit. They advanced, and as they did, Talvoria changed. The shadows seemed to breathe. Footsteps scurried far off. A faint murmur of radios clicked through the air. Crimson Fangs were here. Close, but Elias didn't care. Not anymore. Whatever guarded the path ahead, whatever traps, guns, or monsters waited in the ruins of Talvoria, he would tear through them all, because Mira was alive, and he was coming for her. The entrance to the underground tunnel system lay hidden beneath a collapsed highway overpass, its mouth jagged like the broken jaw of a giant animal swallowing the city's secrets. Elias Grant stood on the edge of the darkness, the stale air rising from below, brushing against his face like a whisper from a forgotten grave. His gray eyes scanned the ruins with soldierly precision. every muscle in his body coiled with controlled tension. Rex stood ahead of him, paws on cracked concrete, the dog's sharp amber eyes fixed on the void beneath them. The faint scent trail of Mira Halley, faint, but unmistakably hers, drowned out the rot and ash. Rex inhaled again, then looked back at Elias with a certainty so fierce it twisted something in Elias's chest. "You're sure?" Elias murmured. Rex's ears twitched. He stepped forward without hesitation. Elias followed him down the slanted path into the bowels of Talvoria. The temperature dropped instantly, cold as stone, wet as graveyard air. The tunnels were remnants of an old metro network, abandoned after the first Civil War decades earlier. Rusted rails curled along the floor, half buried beneath dust and rubble. Water dripped from cracked pipes overhead, echoing through the corridor with slow, mournful rhythm. The shadows here felt alive, shifting like silent watchers. Elias's combat boots made barely a whisper. Years of training carved into his bones kept him moving with lethal stealth. But inside, his thoughts were far from still. Every step brought him closer to Mira, yet every heartbeat reminded him of the last time he lost someone in a trap-laden maze like this. Ghosts of that night came unbidden, the choking smoke, the shouting, the explosion that buried his best friend in a collapse he couldn't dig through in time. He shook his head once, clearing the memory that past failure would not repeat here. Not with Mira, not with Rex by his side. The dog suddenly stopped, muscles hardening beneath his coat. His tail dropped low, ears pricked. Trap. Elias knelt beside him, scanning the ground. 20 feet ahead, a thin, nearly invisible thread glinted under his flashlight. A tripwire. He followed its line and saw a cluster of grenade shells tucked beneath debris along the tunnel wall. A pressure frag array. Anyone walking through would be shredded instantly. Elias exhaled slowly. Crimson Fangs. They know this place. His voice was low, controlled, but inside his chest a cold fury simmered. They were using Mira's humanitarian unit as bait. They were expecting soldiers to follow. He disabled the trap with calm efficiency, cutting the wire with his tactical knife and securing the trigger arm. When it was done, he squeezed Rex's shoulder softly. "Good work." They pressed forward. The deeper they went, the narrower the tunnels became. Pipes ran along both walls like veins, rattling occasionally with coughing bursts of air. Rex's breathing grew sharper. He was locking on the scent with singular focus. Elias followed, senses sharpened to their highest edge. Ahead, a faint metallic clang echoed through the tunnel. Elias froze, pressing against the wall. Another sound followed, bootsteps. Not one person, several. The cadence was irregular, undisciplined. Mercenaries. He lifted his rifle. 3 figures appeared around the corner, Crimson Fangs. The first was tall and gaunt, his pale skin reflecting the dim light as though he lived his life in shadows. His eyes were narrow slits beneath a shaved head, and his movements carried a twitchy impatience. A second man lumbered behind him, bulkier, bald, with a thick neck and a stitched scar across his jawline, the kind earned from close combat knife fights. The third was younger, barely in his 20s, his dirty blonde hair matted with sweat, his expression jittery with fear and adrenaline. All wore mismatched tactical gear scavenged from raids. Before they fully turned the corner, Rex let out a deep growl. The men froze. Elias moved first. 2 suppressed shots struck the tall man in the chest, folding him instantly. The bulky man swung his weapon up. Shouting, Elias pivoted, firing again, 1 round to the shoulder, 1 to the throat. The younger mercenary panicked and fired wildly into the darkness, bullets pinging off pipes in sharp metallic screams. Rex launched. The dog leapt into the air, jaws snapping around the man's forearm, his weight and momentum slamming the mercenary back into the wall. The young man screamed as Rex's grip tightened. Elias swept in, grabbing the attacker by the vest and slamming him down. "Where are the prisoners?" he growled. The man coughed, choking on his breath. His pale blue eyes darted in terror. We took them deeper, Sector 12, past the old filtration plant. There's a holding room. No one survives." Elias struck him once, clean and hard, knocking the man unconscious. Sector 12. He'd never been there. But Mira was close. He could feel it like a second heartbeat. He and Rex pushed deeper through the tunnels, stepping over rusted rails and moss-covered concrete. The air grew thicker. A faint vibration trembled beneath their feet. Machinery. Generators. Something active. Rex slowed again, sniffing vigorously. He let out a soft, distressed whine. Blood? Elias's throat tightened. He followed Rex around a turn and froze at the sight before him. A humanitarian ID badge. Torn, bloodstained, hanging from a broken pipe. Mira's colleague, Aisha Farrow. Aisha had always been easy to recognize. A petite woman in her early 30s with warm brown skin and short curly hair. Known for her bright laugh despite the chaos around her. She wasn't here now, but her badge, smeared with blood, told a grim story. Elias closed his eyes for one brief moment of grief and respect. Aisha didn't deserve this. None of them did. But Mira, he reminded himself, might still be alive. He forced himself forward. The tunnel widened into a larger chamber. Pipes crisscrossed the ceiling, dripping foul-smelling water. Old machinery hummed, running off stolen generators. The sound drowned out smaller noises, but not Rex's sharp bark. Light flickered under a metal door ahead. Elias approached carefully, pressing his ear to the surface. Muffled breathing came from inside, weak, irregular. He forced the lock with a pry bar from his vest, pushing the heavy door open. Inside was a narrow room with peeling paint and a single flickering fluorescent light overhead. A metal chair lay toppled in the corner, and on the floor, barely conscious, was Mira Halley. Elias's breath caught, something raw and vulnerable pushing through the armor of discipline he carried like a second skin. Mira's copper-brown hair was tangled, her hazel eyes half closed, her cheeks streaked with grime. She had a cut along her forehead, dried blood flaking down her temple. Her clothing, once a simple medical vest and khaki pants, was torn at the shoulder, dirtied by the tunnel floor. But she was breathing. Her chest rose and fell faintly, fragile but alive. Mira, Elias whispered, kneeling beside her, her eyes fluttered. Slowly, her gaze focused on him. Elias, her voice cracked, soft and incredulous. You found me. He swallowed a lump in his throat. I said I would. Her lips trembled in a faint smile before her eyes rolled back and she slumped into unconsciousness. Elias lifted her gently, cradling her against his chest. Her weight felt too light, too brittle. Anger surged in him, silent, burning, unwavering. Rex barked once, warning, footsteps again. Many this time, closing fast. They had been discovered. Elias shifted Mira's weight onto his back, securing her with a strap across his chest. We're leaving, he told Rex. The dog lowered his body. Ready. They ran. The tunnel behind them erupted with shouts. Flashlights sliced through the darkness. Gunfire erupted, bullets sparking against the walls beside them. Elias sprinted, breath tight, his body screaming under the added weight, but refusing to falter. Rex zigzagged beside him, snarling, ready to attack if needed. They reached a narrow maintenance corridor and ducked inside as bullets peppered the concrete behind them. Elias fired twice over his shoulder, suppressing the nearest pursuers. As they neared the exit ramp, a Crimson Fang soldier lunged out, knife raised. He was tall, in his mid-40s, with a thick gray beard tangled with dirt. His skin was weathered, sunken, and his dark eyes held a vicious gleam, born from too many battles and too little humanity. Without breaking stride, Elias slammed his shoulder into the man, sending him crashing into the wall. Rex leapt at him, knocking the knife away with a snap of his jaws. Elias didn't waste time. He kept running. They burst out at the tunnel mouth and into the night air, only to find more fangs converging on their position from both sides. Move, Elias ordered, firing into the nearest cluster. Rex charged ahead, teeth bared, forcing a path. Elias followed, Mira secure on his shoulders. Somewhere behind them, a Fang shouted into a radio. Target acquired. They have the woman. Cut them off. Elias clenched his teeth. They had seconds, maybe less. He dodged a spray of bullets, slid behind the burnt remains of a transport truck, and scanned for any path of escape. The city was alive with danger, shadows crawling toward them from every direction. Mira breathed faintly against his back. Rex growled, tense, ready to fight to the death. Elias tightened his grip on his rifle. There was no turning back now. Night had thickened over Talvoria, swallowing the city in a shroud of cold wind and drifting ash. Elias Grant pushed forward through the maze of cracked concrete and twisted metal, his breathing controlled despite the weight of Mira. Hallie slumped across his back. Rex ran ahead, injured but relentless, his gait uneven yet fierce with purpose. The shouts of Crimson Fangs echoed behind them, growing louder with every narrow street they crossed. Floodlights swept the ruins like predatory eyes. Elias scanned the environment, his soldier's mind pulling calculations from instinct, memory, and sheer necessity. He spotted a looming silhouette in the distance. A decaying warehouse, its corrugated metal walls rusted and warped. No power, no movement. A temporary refuge. Rex, he whispered. The dog slowed, looked back, and followed his gesture. They made for the warehouse. The sliding door was half broken, hanging crooked on its rail. Elias shoved it open with his shoulder. Stepping inside, the smell hit him first. Dust, mildew, and the metallic tang of forgotten machinery. Their footsteps echoed, the cavernous space amplifying every sound. Moonlight slipped through holes in the roof, forming pale silver columns that illuminated stacks of old crates, broken conveyor belts, and overturned storage racks. Elias lowered Mira gently onto a crate padded with his jacket. Her face was pale, lips cracked, breath shallow but steady. Her copper-brown hair framed her face like wilted strands of fire. He brushed a smear of dirt off her cheek with the back of his knuckles, a small, fragile gesture from a man who had spent years burying softness. Then he forced himself back into soldier mode. He crouched beside Rex, checking the dog's wound. A graze along the hind leg, bleeding but not deadly. Rex panted quietly, eyes determined even through the pain. Elias pressed his forehead to Rex's for half a second. "I need you with me," he murmured, just a little longer. Gunfire cracked outside. Elias's body went rigid. He raised his weapon, turned toward the small, grimy window. Crimson fangs spilled into the street. 6, and then 8, then more. Their silhouettes moved like vultures circling a dying prey. Spotlights swept across the exterior wall of the warehouse. They had found the trail, and they were closing in. Elias ducked away from the window, breathing steadily. No panic. Panic killed faster than bullets. His mind sorted through options. The warehouse had only 2 exits. The front sliding door, they could see it, and a smaller service door in the back. But that one was jammed from rust. And even if he forced it open, the alley behind was a dead end. Trapped, surrounded, radio silent. He checked Mira again. She murmured faintly, her fingers twitching. "Elias," her voice barely existed. "You're safe," he whispered. "Don't move." Not yet. A new sound filled the air, a distorted electronic hum. Elias frowned. He grabbed his portable radio and turned it on. Static. Thick, unnatural static. The Crimson Fangs were jamming frequencies. No calls for reinforcement. No backup. No evas. They were alone. Boots thudded outside the warehouse. Gravel crunching under heavy steps. Men barked orders. Elias pulled Mira behind a stack of metal crates, shielding her body with his own. Rex stood in front of them, teeth bared, low growl vibrating through his chest. A metallic clank echoed from the main door as someone tried to force it open. Then another clank. Then the screech of metal under heavy tools. Elias understood immediately. They were trying to pry it wider. He had minutes, maybe less. He adjusted the straps of Mira's medical vest. She blinked weakly at him, her hazel eyes cloudy with strain, but holding a spark of trust. "They're coming," she whispered. "I know," Elias said softly. "I won't let them touch you." A small shatter of glass cracked in the distance. Sniper fire. They were testing angles, searching for movement. Elias stayed low, breathing quietly. His mind raced through tactical solutions. He needed to call for help, but the jamming made that impossible, unless he could bypass it. A memory hit him, Rex's training. The dog could carry lightweight gear through chaos faster than any soldier alive. If Rex could reach higher ground outside the jamming radius, the emergency signal in Elias's pack would transmit automatically. But the path was pure suicide. Open streets riddled with gunfire. Elias ran his hand down Rex's neck. The dog's amber eyes locked onto his. "I'm asking too much," Elias murmured, "but you're the only chance." Rex lifted his paw and rested it on Elias's knee, as if giving permission. Elias swallowed hard. He pulled the emergency beacon from his kit, a compact transmitter with a collapsible antenna no larger than a canteen. He strapped it to Rex's harness, securing it tightly. "Get to high ground. The old water tower on 6th Street. If you make it there, the signal goes through. You just have to climb the first section. You remember training. You can do it." Rex barked once, sharp, decisive. Elias leaned in and pressed his forehead to Rex's again. "Come back to me," he whispered. The warehouse doors screamed as metal finally began to tear open. Crimson Fangs shouted triumphantly. It was time. Elias sprinted across the warehouse, kicked open a small ventilation hatch near the floor, barely wide enough for Rex. Bullets immediately peppered the exterior wall. Splinters rained down. Now, Elias hissed. Rex bolted through the hole into the night. Gunfire erupted instantly, dozens of rounds slicing through the darkness. Elias clenched his fists, listening helplessly as Rex zigzagged through the hailstorm of bullets outside. The sound of ricochets bounced like angry hornets. Men shouted, "Shoot the dog!" The transmitter, "Get it." Elias wanted to run out after him. Every instinct screamed to follow, but Mira was behind him, barely clinging to consciousness, and the warehouse door was about to break. He couldn't abandon his position. A final burst of gunfire cracked, and then silence. Elias's heart felt like it stopped. Minutes stretched. Boots approached the hole in the wall. A Fang soldier crouched and peered inside. Before he could fire, Elias shot him once in the head. The man collapsed without a sound. But still, no sign of Rex. Elias's throat tightened, until a faint, distant bark echoed from somewhere far beyond the street. Then another. Then silence again. He exhaled shakily. "You did it," he whispered, outside. The gunfire resumed, but further away, moving toward another block. The distraction had worked. Some of the Crimson Fangs had broken formation to hunt the dog, but others stayed. The warehouse door finally buckled inward. A panel tore free and slammed onto the floor. Crimson Fangs poured in, armed, armored, and seething with adrenaline. Elias lifted his rifle. The first man in was thickly built, probably late 30s, with a matted black beard and tattooed forearms. Elias shot him twice, center mass. The man fell hard. Another soldier rushed through, firing wildly. Elias ducked behind a crate, waited for the magazine change, then dropped him with 2 shots. But they kept coming. 5. Then, no more. Bullets shredded crates, ripped through conveyor belts, smashed into the concrete floor. Mira curled into herself, hands over her ears. Elias shielded her with his body whenever he had the chance, firing over her shoulder. A grenade clattered onto the floor. Elias grabbed it, threw it back through the door, and tackled Mira behind a pallet stack just before it detonated outside. The explosion shook dust from the rafters. He coughed through the smoke. Mira's trembling hand gripped his arm. "Don't let them take me," she whispered. Elias brushed a strand of hair from her face. "Over my dead body." Crimson Fangs were regrouping outside, the echo of their boots vibrating across the metal walls. He heard one man growl, "We're breaching again. Push hard." Though the woman is priority alive, Elias felt cold rage settle into his bones. He positioned himself between Mira and the door, rifle raised, teeth clenched. His muscles burned, his breath sharp. But he stood tall, unmoving, like a wall forged from discipline and fury. The door burst open again. Elias fired. He fought like a man with nothing left to lose and everything left to protect. Silent, brutal, precise. Gunfire roared. Bullets screamed. Glass shattered overhead. And then a thunderous roar filled the night sky. Helicopters, multiple, big. The emergency beacon had gone through. Backup was coming. The night sky above Talvoria split open with the thunder of helicopter rotors, their blades slicing the darkness like a salvation long overdue. Elias Grant crouched low behind the last row of crates in the warehouse. Mira Holly leaning weakly against his shoulder, her breath soft but steadier than before. Rex lay at his side, one leg trembling from pain, but his amber eyes burning with the same fierce devotion that had carried him through bullets and fire. The warehouse shook again as a second helicopter banked over the rooftop. Elias listened, measuring the rhythm of the rotors, the sharp bursts of machine gun fire from above, the panic in the Crimson Fang's voices outside. Reinforcements had arrived. Rex had done it. The signal had gone through. Outside, a voice bellowed over loudspeakers. "All Fangs, drop your weapons. This is an active military operation. Surrender or face engagement." Elias recognized the voice, Commander Jace Mercer, a disciplined, battle-weathered SEAL officer in his early 40s. He was tall, broad-shouldered, his black hair cut short along a widow's peak, streaked lightly with gray, a mark earned from years of conflict. His dark brown skin gleamed under the helicopter spotlight, and his jawline was hard, angular, carrying a neatly trimmed beard dusted with silver. Calm, commanding. efficient. Elias had served under him before, during the Northern Arch raids. Mercer never raised his voice unless the situation demanded absolute clarity. But Crimson Fangs never surrendered. The first RPG streaked upward from behind the ruins across the yard, lighting the night in a fiery arc. Elias flinched instinctively. The rocket whistled, colliding with the side of a hovering helicopter. The blast rocked the warehouse so violently that Mira gasped and clung to Elias's sleeve. The helicopter staggered but regained control, guns immediately unleashing a rain of retaliatory fire. Crimson Fangs scattered like insects, ducking behind rusted vehicles and shattered concrete pillars. Elias counted at least 15 silhouettes still pushing toward the warehouse. Mercer's voice crackled through Elias's radio, now free of interference thanks to Rex's impossible run. Spectre, copy. We have your location. Sit tight. Extraction team inbound. Elias exhaled slowly. Copy. Commander, hostiles breaching the main entrance. I'm low on ammo. Mira's injured. Rex is down, but responsive. Rex nudged Elias's thigh indignantly, as if defying being described as down. Mira managed a faint smile, her hazel eyes shimmering weakly. He's tougher than you, she whispered. Elias brushed her hair back gently. I know. The warehouse doors rattled again. Crimson Fangs, desperate and enraged, were regrouping for one last push. Elias could hear one of their leaders shouting orders outside, a deep, guttural voice laced with fury. Elias had seen that man earlier from afar, recognizing his distinct silhouette. Rogan Vale, one of the Crimson Fangs' field captains. Rogan was tall and heavily built, with a thick beard, scarred cheek, and wild dark eyes that revealed a history of brutality. His arms were tattooed with black serpents and broken chains, symbols of the Fangs' ideology. He was known for taking prisoners alive, only to use them as bargaining chips, and for killing those who resisted. He was coming for Mira. Elias's grip tightened around his rifle. The warehouse lights flickered as another explosion outside shook the walls. Mira tensed. Elias pressed his forehead briefly to hers. Almost out of this, he murmured. Rex's body stiffened. His ears perked up. He let out a warning growl. Boots pounded the metal floor, close. Elias spun, raising his rifle just as the side entrance finally blew inward. The force of the blast slammed crates against nearby walls. Dust filled the air. 3 Crimson Fangs rushed in through the smoke, guns raised. Elias fired first, 2 quick shots. One mercenary dropped instantly, the second dove behind a support pillar. The third, a thin man with a shaved head and darting eyes, sprinted toward Mira. Rex lunged. Despite his injured leg, the dog shot across the floor like a black bolt of fury. He latched onto the man's forearm, pulling him down with a fierce snarl. The man screamed, weapon clattering across the floor. Elias rushed forward, delivering a swift, crushing blow to the mercenary's jaw. The man went limp. Elias knelt beside Rex, checking the dog's wound again. Good boy, he whispered. Stay with me. Rex's tail slapped once against the floor. Another shadow filled the doorway. Rogan Vale stepped inside. He was even more terrifying up close, towering almost 6'4", muscles thick beneath his tactical vest. His beard coarse and black, streaked with red dust. His skin was weathered, rugged, and a cruel smirk twitched at the corner of his lips. His eyes, dark and sunken, scanned the warehouse until they landed on Mira. There she is. Rogan snarled. Do you know what she cost us? Elias moved in front of her. You want her? He said, voice deadly calm. You'll go through me. Rogan chuckled, a deep, humorless rumble. Then I'll enjoy this. He raised his rifle. A thunderous boom echoed above them. The roof of the warehouse tore open as a military breaching charge detonated. Ropes dropped down. Shadowed figures slid through the hole with silent precision. SEAL operators in matte black tactical gear, goggles reflecting flashes of gunfire. They moved like phantoms, swift, disciplined, lethal. Rogan whirled, firing upward. The SEALs dispersed instantly, bullets missing by inches. One SEAL landed beside Elias, a young man with tan skin, sharp brown eyes, and a buzz cut. His name patch read Keller. Lieutenant Grant, we've got you. Evac Bird is on approach. Rogan cursed and fired again. Keller returned fire, forcing him behind a stack of rusted barrels. Elias seized the moment, grabbing Mira and hoisting her into his arms. Rex hobbled beside him, snarling in Rogan's direction. A helicopter spotlight pierced through the roof gap, bathing the warehouse interior in blinding white beams. Dust swirled like ghostly fog. Over the roaring engines, Commander Mercer's voice thundered. "Bravo team, extract the civilians. Neutralize all fangs." Gunfire erupted in violent waves. Rogan's men tried to regroup, but the SEALs were too fast, too coordinated. Each operator moved like a precision instrument, forged through years of discipline and battle. Rogan roared in frustration and charged through the smoke. Trying to reach Mira, Elias spun, raising his rifle, but Keller dove in front of him, firing a controlled 3-shot burst. Each shot found its mark. Rogan staggered, dropped his weapon, and collapsed hard onto the metal floor. "Target neutralized," Keller announced, lowering his weapon. Elias nodded once, breath shaking. Mercer descended through the rooftop rope, landing with the commanding grace of a man who had led dozens of insertions under fire. His sharp features softened slightly when his eyes found Elias, and Mira in his arms. "Hell of a job staying alive, Lieutenant," Mercer said. Elias smirked faintly, sweat and dust streaking his rugged face. "Didn't do it alone." Rex barked once in agreement. Mercer's mouth twitched upward. "Kani Rekas, I read the report. He's the reason we even found you. Hell of a dog." Rex straightened proudly, despite the blood on his leg. "Let's get you out of here," Mercer said. The SEALs formed a protective circle around Elias, Mira, and Rex as they made their way to the extraction point. The helicopter blades whipped the ground, sending dust and debris swirling. Elias lifted Mira into the cabin, securing her carefully. Rex leapt in after them with effort but determination. As Elias climbed aboard, he took one last look at Talvoria, the burning warehouse, the retreating shadows of the fangs, the ruins where fear once ruled. The nightmare was ending, and dawn was finally breaking. The next days at the military medical base blurred into soft lights, antiseptic smells, and quiet recovery. Mira healed slowly, her strength returning day by day. Elias stayed with her whenever he wasn't debriefing. He slept in a chair beside her bed some nights, arms crossed over his chest, boots still on, the exhaustion in his posture, but relief settling deeper with every sunrise. Rex recovered quickly. The base veterinarians called him a miracle of muscle and heart. Soldiers saluted him, whispered admiration when he passed, slipped him extra treats when they thought no one was looking. A week later, a ceremony gathered on the base courtyard. Elias stood in his crisp uniform, every metal gleaming in the morning sun. His strong posture was firm, though the faint smile at the corner of his lips broke his usually stoic composure. Commander Mercer pinned a new medal onto his chest, the Medal of Valor. Mira watched from her wheelchair, her hair brushed and shining again, her skin warm with returning color. She clapped softly, eyes bright with pride. Then Mercer turned to Rex. "Canine Rex," he announced, "for extraordinary bravery, unwavering loyalty, and exceptional service under fire, you are hereby recognized as an honorary hero of the United States Navy." The courtyard erupted in applause. Rex barked proudly and leaned against Elias's leg. When the ceremony ended, Mira approached Elias. She stood carefully, balancing with her cane. Elias stepped forward to help, but she shook her head gently. "I've got this," she whispered. Then she reached for his hand. "I'm not leaving," Mira said softly. "Not after everything. Not after you." Elias took her hand in both of his, thumb brushing gently across her knuckles. "Then stay," he murmured. "Stay with us." Rex nudged her side, tail wagging. Mira laughed through tears. Elias pulled her close, holding her against his chest, the warm sunlight settling over them like a long-awaited blessing. For the first time in a long time, the world around them was quiet or safe. Whole, they had survived hell, and now, together, they were finally stepping into peace. In the darkest corners of Talvoria, amid the ruins and the gunfire, one truth shined brighter than every explosion that tried to silence it. Miracles don't always arrive with wings. Sometimes, they run toward us on 4 wounded legs, or show up in the courage of a man who refuses to give up. Elias, Mira, and Rex survived because loyalty was stronger than fear, love was stronger than despair, and faith was stronger than the war around them. And maybe, just maybe, God was guiding each step they took in the shadows, right up until the dawn that saved them. Their story reminds us that even in our daily lives, far from battlefields and ruins, we all face our own dark tunnels, moments of fear, doubt, exhaustion, and heartbreak. But miracles don't only happen in war stories. They happen in ordinary hearts, in quiet moments, in unexpected places. Sometimes a single act of courage, a loyal friend, a stranger's kindness, or a prayer whispered in the night is enough to change everything. If this story touched your heart, if you believe in courage, loyalty, and the miracles that guide us through the hardest days, please share this video with someone who needs hope today. Leave a comment below and tell us what part of the story stayed with you. Click like if you believe miracles still walk among us. And don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss the next story that reminds us why we keep fighting. Keep loving and keep holding on. May God bless you, protect your family, and give you strength in every battle you face, both the ones the world can see and the ones only your heart knows.